On paper, a VA loan assumption sounds like a win for everybody. The buyer gets a lower interest rate, you potentially attract more attention to your home, the transaction moves forward, and everybody just leaves happy. At least that's what it looks like, because buried underneath all that conversation is a detail that can quietly follow you all the way to your next duty station. And most military sellers don't realize that they have a problem until they're already trying to buy the next house. And by then, it's usually a terrible time for surprises. So let's say PCS orders hit. You're preparing for a move, you own a home with a 2.5% VA mortgage. Rates today are way higher than that. So someone says, why don't you just market the assumable loan? Well, it makes sense. You get excited because now your home has something unique attached to it. And buyers get excited because the payment could be way lower. Everybody feels like they found the shortcut. And then months later, you start shopping for your next house, and then suddenly says, hold on a second. And that is usually the moment where the confusion starts. So a quick question, before today, if someone tried to assume your VA loan, would you automatically assume that your entitlement came back too? Because most people do, and honestly, it sounds logical, right? The house is sold, the loan is transferred, it's done. Except that VA entitlement doesn't always work that way. So let's simplify this a little bit. Your entitlement isn't attached to the house. It isn't attached to the address, and it definitely doesn't magically reset just because ownership changes. Your entitlement follows the loan. Now that distinction matters because once someone assumes your mortgage, what happens next determines whether your entitlement comes back to you or if it stays tied up. These are two very, very different outcomes. So now let's walk through two different scenarios. This is the same house, this is the same loan, and this is a completely different ending in either scenario. Scenario 1, another eligible VA buyer assumes your mortgage and substitutes their entitlement. Generally speaking, this is the way cleaner version and the way cleaner way to do this. The buyer replaces your entitlement with theirs, you move on, your eligibility gets restored, and life is good. This is simple enough, right? So now let's look at the second situation. Let's say a civilian buyer comes along, they're a strong buyer, they've got great qualifications, and they love the house, and they want to assume your mortgage. And then the transaction closes. Well, everything feels successful, and you move, and months pass, and now you start preparing to buy your next home. And then suddenly, your entitlement may still be sitting there tied to that old loan. So read that again, because this is where people get blindsided. The house sold, you moved, you thought that whole chapter of your life was closed, but meanwhile, part of your VA benefit is still attached to a property that you don't even own anymore. That creates a super different conversation when you're trying to buy another house. So before today, have you ever heard of this happening? Because I can almost guarantee that a lot of people watching just had a, wait, seriously? Type of moment. So now, does that mean assumptions are dangerous? No, actually not even close. Assumptions can be absolutely phenomenal. The problem isn't the assumption. The problem is the incomplete information people have, because if nobody explains this piece early enough, a lot of military sellers can make decisions thinking that they're maximizing their flexibility while they're accidentally shrinking it down. And flexibility is super important during PCS moves, and it matters a lot more than people realize. So let's say you're headed toward another duty station in a few years, or maybe retirement is coming up, or maybe separation is on the horizon, and you want some options. You want buying power, you want your benefits available to you. Then imagine discovering halfway through your next move and through your next home search that part of your entitlement is just totally unavailable to you because of a decision that you made years ago. So not because anybody intentionally messed up, not because somebody lied to you, not because somebody did anything wrong, right? They just never slowed down enough to actually talk you through the details. So I want to know on this one, if your home had a 2.5% assumable mortgage attached to it, would you prioritize getting top dollar or protecting your future entitlement flexibility? Drop that below, because I think that people answer that question differently once they understand the other side of the equation. So here's what I think military sellers should ask before assumptions even enter the conversation. Who is likely going to be buying this home? Is the buyer using VA financing? Would entitlement substitution happen? Does this mean that this is going to work for me later? Because assumptions aren't just transaction decisions, they're future decisions. And future you may care a whole lot more than present you realizes. So this is really the hidden side of assumptions that nobody talks about. Everybody loves talking about interest rates, people obsess over a lower monthly payment, and the flashy part gets all the attention here, right? But the structural side of this whole conversation gets completely ignored, but the structure determines the outcomes every single time. So if you hear somebody say, great news, your VA loan is assumable, don't stop there, right? Like, that may absolutely be a huge opportunity. Just make sure you understand the person who assumes your loan does have an effect on what happens afterwards. Because the danger isn't in the assumption itself. The danger is finding out years down the line that this decision that you made in the moment followed you way farther than you expected. So if you want more military real estate breakdowns where we unpack the stuff that sounds simple until you actually look under the hood, then make sure you're subscribed to this channel. And if you have assumption questions that come up in your PCS planning, drop a comment below, because I think a lot of military homeowners are going to run into this over the next couple years.